Hi, everyone. On this podcast, you will get the latest in AI technology for go-to-market teams, where we're going to explore how to use this evolving technology to uncover more revenue for your business. I'm Sheikh Shahi. Over the last 5 years, I've built a $20 million revenue engine for one of the UK's top startups, and most recently launched a business in Japan where we hit 50 B2B customers in 9 months.
And I'm Lewis Stock. Whilst building with Sheikh everything he just mentioned, I orchestrated the GTM AI engine, which we're now productionizing as we co-found together NXL.
All right, Lewis, welcome back to the podcast. We've managed to hit episode 2.
It's good. This is usually where people stop, right? They start and it's all about continuity. So I'm glad we're here. Before we jump in, it's worth saying that this is the first of a mini series that we're recording. So there'll be about 3 to 4 episodes. One thing that Shay and I have been really interested in as we started to build NXL is who are high performers in businesses? Who are the 20% of people who have 80% of the impact? Who are the best people we ever worked with? And how would we describe them? And then how would we build AI technology around them? So we'll investigate over these 3 to 4 episodes those different roles.
Yeah, totally. And I think between the two of us, we have pretty much done every single function across the go-to-market. And we've worked with a lot of very talented people. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail and how AI can really amplify them. Today, we're going to be talking about content marketing and the best content marketer we've ever worked with, right? And that's that very rare person that really understands the business, understands the customer, and knows how to connect the dots from content marketing to business.
Let's be honest, at the moment, there's so much content out there. And so I think it's the people who can really connect authentically. That's where we're moving, is how can you create authentic content consistently and not just doing something that sounds the same or is generic.
Absolutely. And for the CMOs listening, typically content marketing sits under the chief marketing officer. The purpose for us is really simple. We want to help you understand how AI is going to reshape this existing role, not necessarily get rid of it, but really amplify it.
Yeah, and the thing that's really interesting is our take is we have these amazing people in our organizations. How can we take that one amazing content marketer currently or someone who's nearly there and put that power suit on top of them? We were talking to someone who was a serial entrepreneur, built lots of GTM machines, and they described it as the Iron Man suit. Is you put it on top and suddenly their functionality, they're already an amazing person, but how do they then go and scale and create a content machine for you, which really makes that difference?
Yeah, I love that. I love the Iron Man suit. It's great. Okay, cool. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. There's a lot of content out there right now. There's a lot of noise. We talked about it on the last episode. A lot of people copy and pasting ChatGPT prompts into LinkedIn. How do we get around that?
Yeah, well, firstly, hopefully, if anyone's made it to this stage of the podcast, it's not just noise that we're producing.
I hope so.
The danger is SEO filler, tick box, no soul. That's what you want to get around. And as you said, if you're typing into ChatGPT or your LLM a prompt with maybe a bit of context, there's a danger that you get the same hooks, the same AI telltales that you see across social media and blogs at the moment.
Yeah, and I guess part of that is ultimately, content is going out there, and it's just disconnected from the business. It's disconnected from the business, but disconnected from the individual. So a lot of what's going out there is just copy and paste.
Yeah, and the best product, the best content marketer we worked with was someone who deeply understood the product and potentially understood that product better than product managers, because they knew who they were targeting and they knew the voice and the problems they were solving. Quite literally, they were out there in the market feeling it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we both described them. They're almost like mini founders, and the way they were able to connect with not just the sales teams within a business or the revenue function, but all areas of the business was what really stood out to me. Those were the people that stood out to me as content marketers. They were able to connect with the founders, the C level, the SLT, but also the salespeople on the ground would also rely on them, which the salespeople started to understand the value of the content. That's where it's powerful.
Accountability is the word. We love to think about that. Is if you're a high performer, you're accountable for that product success, that content success, and those mini founders are the people that really feel that I'm going to make this successful and own the outcomes. What do we think are the superpowers of content marketers? I can go first. I think it's that deep subject matter understanding. It's someone who can sit in front of a founder, a CEO of another business, a thought leader, and it feels like they can translate exactly what they're saying and they bring it into the audience they're speaking to, and it's very clear.
Yeah, I think that the superpower of the content marketers I've worked with is their ability, and I think we mentioned it before, but their ability to connect to be almost your voice, understand that content marketing is about the customer, okay? And it's ultimately about listening to the problems that the customer has, right? And speaking to your salespeople. Your salespeople are the people who are speaking to the customer every day. And they're hearing those pain points more than anyone else in the business. So they need the support more than anyone. And I think the best example I can give of this is, when we were in Japan, I was obviously selling to a lot of different businesses across many, many verticals. And there was one particular vertical, which was marketing and advertising, that almost became my go-to niche vertical. I sold to the first customer and they had a number of different problems. At the time we were selling ULife, which was an employee benefit platform. And it was all about understanding how you could improve certain problems within the workforce. And what we found was in the marketing and advertising space, you had problems such as high burnout, employees leaving on long-term sickness absenteeism. They had cultural issues, engagement issues, and that was a huge problem in marketing advertising when ultimately you live and die by the clients that you have and how you serve them. So I heard that from one customer, and then I heard it again from the second customer, and then I started to speak to my content marketer, and they started to produce really great content aligned with those pain points. Both that I could use commercially with each customer, one-to-one, but also one-to-many as well. And, the blog articles we were producing, the videos were all centered around that. And, I can quite honestly say that really enabled, me personally to kind of build a lot of credibility in that market with the CEOs of those businesses. And we ended up getting to 3 of the biggest media agencies in Japan. In total, the total population of those 3 agencies, they have about 250,000 employees around the world. And that was all in the space of 9 months. And I couldn't have done it without the content marketer.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just to summarize what I'm hearing is the best content marketer in terms of this episode is they nail that tone of voice. They understand the content pillars you're aligning to, and they're putting those out in a format which speaks to the audience. And what was really important there is you're having one idea that's aligned to those things, but you're repurposing that content. So it's a bit of a waterfall, right? You've got blogs, you've got newsletter, you've got thought leadership posts, events.
Yeah.
All of those things are coming together with that wrapper of a revenue-minded, person who, I think this is the key, right? We're not just producing content for the sake of producing content. It's the top of the GTM funnel. It's the awareness and education. And
yes,
that revenue focus is so important to make this impactful, and why people would invest deeply in this type of technology and role.
100%. And it's also the link between inbound and outbound. So in the example that I used, the initial first couple of media and advertising companies were, I hunted them outbound. I started speaking to the CEOs. And then once I understood the problem, then we almost unlocked the inbound marketing, which was the content, and really, one-to-many scale, educating them on the problem and the fact that we could solve that problem. And in the end, I went from outbound to, a lot of these businesses coming to us inbound because we really, truly understood the customer pain points.
Yeah, I love it. It's a great example, and I think this is why we wanted to make the podcast is this practical idea of how we can take a content engine and actually show an example of it being working in action.
Yeah, yeah. So let's go into before we go into AI and how we can amplify the content marketer with AI. I just want to be clear on, content still matters more than ever before. And I think why did it matter in the first place? I think content allows you to help you build your brand, right? And more than that, it helps to educate your audience on the problems that you're solving, as we've talked about. And without the brand and without that connection that the audience have with your brand, people don't know about your stuff. People don't know you. They don't trust you, and ultimately, it doesn't help the overall buying process. If people don't know about you, they're not going to buy from you. If they don't trust you, they're not going to buy from you.
Absolutely. The age old stat is it's 7 touches online, if not more. Not just online, but out of home or TV, whatever it might be, whatever your type of product is. It's those multiple touches before even someone considers buying you that makes the difference. And historically, people have invested and taken that in paid ads and content, whatever it might be. But they've also started to think about SEO, and that's been the historical investment. But now with GEO or AI search optimization, this is the next big thing: is how can you have an authentic voice that's credible, so that when those AI searchers are looking at websites, that you're coming up as the one or the free products that they will source when someone asks a question. And that's going to be so impactful to businesses if we can get ahead of this right now.
Yeah, I mean, SEO dominated digital marketing for way over 20 years, and now we're in the very early stages of this GEO capability. So I think the opportunity for any business now to get on top of this and win that race and get themselves on the top of the search rankings is huge, and it could unlock so much revenue. So that's exciting.
Absolutely, and it's a constantly changing beast, right? No one really knows. It's a bit of a black box what will get you to the top of GEO, but there are definitely clear pillars that you can work on, and producing content that's aligned to those pillars is going to get you ahead right now.
Yeah, so same with SEO, right? No one really knew, but there was these, a few trigger points that people worked off of, that they knew could have an impact, right? And I think good content that matches your tone of voice is very key to that. Okay, cool. So here's the question everyone I think has been asking, or certainly the people that we've spoken to: can AI actually write good content?
So I think the answer is no, in terms of how people are traditionally using it, and traditionally is the past 2-3 years. However, the actual answer will be yes. And what we've built and what we've seen is, if you treat this thing of AI as a whole as something generic, a freelancer, you ask questions, it's never going to produce for you the content you're hoping to. However, if you start giving it the brain and the box to work in, then it's the content it can produce is to a very high level where it requires a human to come in and add that cherry on the top.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess a big part of that is research, right? So if you talk to any content marketer, they'll probably tell you that they're spending, a big chunk of their time, maybe up to 80% of their time actually researching, and 20% of their time writing. And then maybe the average ones are doing the reverse, or they're just Googling, or as you said, just prompting ChatGPT. So I guess the question is, how can you get AI to help with that 80% of content marketers who are spending their time researching?
That's the interesting thing when people make the opinion on is AI good for creating content, is they're not thinking about all the stages they go through to create something that's very high quality. And research is a big one, ideas, coming up with what's hot and new and trending. Another example, right, is what's so impactful right now is you can directly link in your sales calls transcripts, your objections you're hearing from customers, Slack debates, interviews, strategy documents, competitors, all these amazing sources now, that would have taken hours and hours to produce content, and that's really what good content is. It's bringing together all these fantastic forces.
Yeah.
We can now build those workflows and products that, and that's what we built, right? It's something that brings that all together and comes up every single time with a good idea that will be impactful to your audience. And that's already 50-60% of the job before you even started writing.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that it's a big part of how you can really make AI authentic when it comes to your content marketing comes back down to that brain, and that that brain really understanding your business better than anyone else. And I guess it comes back to what we were talking about in the first episode, which was context being king. And that's when the content starts sounding like you as the individual or the business rather than just AI generated.
Yeah, that's why we focused quite heavily on the implementation side at the start with customers, is because getting that context and the guardrails and the box that your AI lives in to produce quality content is so important, because if you put rubbish in, you're going to get rubbish out. If you deeply
Yeah.
think about how your system works, the content can already be at such a high level before you even optimize it.
Yeah, and I guess the next objection is quite linked to this, which is a lot of people say, well, AI sounds robotic, or I can tell when something's AI or content's AI. How do you get around that?
Well, this is really fun, right? Because the thing I love, you see memes on it online, is you type into ChatGPT, you type into Claude, and it tells you how amazing you are and how brilliant the idea is, and then you say that's not right. It goes, oh yeah, you got it right. So I think that the LLMs are built, to be agreeable. They're built in a certain way, and I
Yeah.
think this is the key thing, is starting to structure how you want your LLM to respond to you, and what is a good idea. In that example, I always like to say, hey, be a challenger, rather than just agree with me. I think that's your
Mm.
first step. But these guardrails we're talking about is how you start to build your system and your prompts to be effective. What I think would be actually a really useful thing is, why don't we start building, how we would create, Shay's content engine. So if we
Yeah.
start off with tonality, I think that's the first place you start. How you write, the styles, how you make
Mm.
people feel. Um, you've always been data driven. Tell me about what you feel your tonality is.
So you're asking here how I would want the AI to understand me?
Yeah, exactly. So if we were going to build you now and give you those guardrails,
Yeah.
um, let's start thinking about how we want the AI to reply to, and how we want it to build the content around your personality. So I think one of the
Okay.
key areas you start looking at is the tonality of one.
Tonality.
Yeah. For example, let's take you recently posted and you had 30,000 impressions, which is
Yeah.
amazing. What was it about that post, do you think, that really landed from a tonality perspective?
I think the maybe the tonality around that was just really very learnings focused. I obviously had a really interesting experience that not many people get to have, which is being in Japan, but also working across the UK and Japan. And I think the post was really reflective of that and the learnings and how people can leverage that in their day to day lives. But in terms of my overall tone, I like to think that I'm quite to the point, very black and white, very kind of data driven. Yeah, that's how I would you know I would probably describe my tone, and I'd want AI to think about me.
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of replicating that post that was so impactful to your audience, those are really key things to make it feel successful. And when we work with companies, if they don't know what their tonality or their messaging should be, you will never
Mm,
feel like the AI is producing good content for you, because you don't know what good looks like. So you
yeah.
defining now that's how you would like it to speak on your behalf is, the first step. The
Okay.
next step, probably why you got that high level of impact, was around the audience you're targeting.
Yeah.
And by that, certain people might be targeting companies, they might be targeting partners. For
Yes.
you in this instance, on behalf of NXL or in your current roles, what would you say your audience is?
I would say if you look back on my experience, I think the people that would be most interested in what I have to say are anyone in marketing, CMOs. I've got a strong marketing background. Anyone in sales, because I've done sales, so CROs, and then business owners, founders who are looking to scale, and then also people who are looking to scale across countries. So I think that's probably my primary audience I think I could speak to and help, so
Yeah,
to speak.
definitely. You've got very distinct audiences, and you will be producing content that needs to be relevant again for it to be impactful and to produce what you want. You're going to have to say, okay, this one's going to be targeted at CROs, or this might be my
Yeah.
box. So let's go a bit more technical into sales structure. But for the cross international launching a business
Hmm.
style, that's a much more open type of post in terms of the technical levels to it, but it might be around the authenticity and the stories that you experience that people want to hear about, maybe the tools you use or the people you spoke to and the communities you joined.
Got it. How would you fit in personality? I think that's the biggest one. Where would that fit into? Like when I say personality, I mean like, you know, I don't know. For example, I used to play football, and that shaped my personality from a performance perspective and a competitive perspective for a long time. And maybe I would want the AI to know about that and shape my content as a founder in that way. Like how where would that fit into the
Yeah,
training
absolutely.
process?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the what's interesting is you can go back and you can look at the past, 100 posts and blogs and content created by Shay, and that starts to create a picture of who you are.
Yeah.
Something we've been experimenting with is doing that interview with a person on a personal note. One leader's shared with us a podcast where they went into the depths of who they are and what built them and certain experiences.
Yeah.
Again, just like if you were to give them case studies about your business, if you can give
Mm.
experiences you're happy to share, those can then be put inside and weaved in appropriate ways. So if there's a certain topic that you're talking about, it might put on that experience to say, hey, this
Yeah.
is where I showed resilience going into a new market, and this is where I learned it, as an example. So it's building out that knowledge base around a person, and I
Yeah.
think that's why that implementation phase is really important to it.
Interesting.
One thing I'd also add here is, something you're speaking about is the potentially personal experiences. Now,
Yes.
there's different types of content, right? We in a focus here on LinkedIn because of that one post that you had, but it might be blog content, it might be other formats, and you're going to want to build content pillars around the format, but also what you want to speak about as a company. So you might have personal experiences, and actually the AI might take a look at your knowledge base and say this could be a good personal experience to speak about, or this is a
Got
moment to
it.
be authentic. But you're, as a human, are going to want to lay on top. Maybe you went to this event recently, or this something more
Yeah.
recent. But again, part of those content pillars, you might say 80% of them are going to be around targeting CROs, 20% is going to be launching in new countries, and 10% is going to be personal stories around how I'm building a business. And I think that's important with your content pillars, defining those before.
Yeah. That I think I think for me not sounding too AI is definitely the biggest fear I have when it comes to using AI. But I think to your point, if the AI understands you and your story, it's almost like hiring a junior employee, right? If you're hiring a junior employee, you don't just, let's say I hired a junior employee to run all of my social media. I'm not just going to hire them on day one and then just let them go and do their own thing without giving them any context. If I truly want that individual to serve me well and do do a great job and understand me, I need to invest the time to give it all of the context required, and it needs to understand me. That's the only way it works.
What it's producing ultimately is looking at a backlog of masses of historical information.
Yeah.
So if it's seeing that the most successful posts and the most frequent ones, and this was the feedback I got, is I don't want to be that show off lead or a founder on LinkedIn saying how much money I made or whatever it might be. If that's the things that are being successful, that's the thing that's going to start recreating. So you need to let it know which direction you want to go in terms of
Yeah.
how you want to be heard.
Actually, I'm definitely seeing a theme across our conversations around like this context. Honestly, like I genuinely feel that this is such an important area that people are not thinking about enough, and I think it's going to become even more thought about over the next 1 or 2 years.
This is in reality, this is what makes the difference between like a standard product you buy online that doesn't deeply understand you, and speaking to
Yeah,
industry experts and people who understand how to apply technology to a very human process.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
quite
let's get
some implementation, right?
yeah, absolutely. Let's get into the practicalities. So we want to talk about. So we've talked about why content is important, what makes a great content marketer, what is their superpowers. We talked about context again and understanding, and AI needing to really understand you and your story and the business and the guardrails. Now let's talk about how we can actually leverage AI for content in practical terms.
Yeah, going back to the example we spoke about around the Iron Man suit, this is it, right? Is if you want to produce high quality content and consistently, you need to take a
Mhm.
high performer, someone who understands your brand, your authenticity, and you need to place that suit on top of them. And so this is
Yeah.
where I think it's most impactful is having this engine that is supporting, helping high performer orchestrate your content across all different platforms.
Yeah.
One area I think that's very interesting as well is the impact on leaders' voices. So I keep using the word authenticity, but I think that's really the generation coming through. Everyone's going to be so attuned to the fact that our world is so in a box on a screen. So that authenticity is really
Mhm.
important, and hearing from voices who are very credible is going to become it is already, but it's going to be the top area we look at. So that founder voice, that leader voice, that C-suite voice, and I don't know whether enough businesses are currently taking advantage of that.
I think the answer is that they're not. I did a bit of research the other day, and I found that 82% of SLT members, so senior leadership team members, anyone on the kind of C level with a C level title within a business, are not actually posting on LinkedIn, and I find that criminal. I think ultimately the senior leadership team are the face of the business, and I think a lot of people like to hear from people, at that level, CMOs, CROs, CEOs of the business, and they're almost, one of your biggest marketing tools out there. And it's a fantastic way to build the brand across the business. I actually read something from Alex Hormozy the other day that really stuck with me. It was one of his posts, and he talked about a woman who ran a very niche business in basically helping registered dietitians bill for insurance. And she had 5,000 Instagram followers. Her average post got 19 likes, and her business was taking home about 1 million a year. And I think it was something like 95% of her business came from Instagram. So it was like a really good reminder that it's actually not about having millions of followers. It's about, having the right audience and reaching the right audience. And every single view on your podcast, on your LinkedIn post, or every single impression, anyone who reads it, that's a real person. And, it takes a handful of them to take your business to the next level, which I found it really like hit home with me.
I love it. And so back to how we can use AI is if you know your audience and you know where they're reading their content, if you can create high quality at volume that's resonating and authentic across credible voices like the founders who are building or the people they want to hear from, that's where this power suit becomes so impactful because before where it would have taken hours and time was an issue, or creating the right images was a problem, that can be removed.
Totally agree. I think that is the key. Okay, so what would you say are the main takeaways here for CMOs, CROs, founders?
So AI isn't replacing the best marketer or the content marketer, but it's giving them leverage. So before the expectation might have been writer, create base images, and now it's an architect, it's an orchestrator. And we're seeing that that might be a common theme we see across this mini series, but that power suit example is where this is going to is create the environment for your content manager to thrive in, give them the context, give them access to these amazing sources of information that your company have, and enable them to put the cherry on top, enable them to add the personal story, to orchestrate across multiple founders, across different content types, blogs, etc., LinkedIn. That's where I think the biggest takeaway is is take that one person who's performing and help them, have that higher impact through having technology which really can accelerate them.
100%. And ultimately, if you are a CMO and you're not thinking about using AI in your content marketing strategy, you are most likely going to be outcompeted by someone else who is. So I think there's some urgency in here that this is something that every CMO really, really needs to put into their strategy for 2026. Amazing. Thank you, Lewis. So if for the audience, we're going to be doing a series of these types of podcasts where we're going to talk about a specific role in the GTM, the best of that role we've ever worked with. And we're going to be talking about how AI can accelerate that role. If any of this resonated with you at all and you want a practical starting point or you just want to have a conversation, we've built an AI content assistant to help teams, turn ideas into very consistent, high quality output. And it's already been used by customers. You can get in touch with us on www.yournextlevel.io or connect with us on LinkedIn. Our LinkedIn profiles will be in the description below. Thank you very much and have an amazing week for anyone listening.
See you in the next episode.